Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Common Area Lighting webinar. My name is Lorena, and I'll be hosting the webinar today. Before we get started, I'd like to start with a safety moment. Safety is a core value at PGE, and we wanted to remind everyone to be safe around electricity. As you consider installing or retrofitting lighting equipment or other things in your facility, please keep in mind safety. We also encourage your family, tenants, and staff to prepare with an outage kit. We never know what what could happen, and so having that kit has always been helpful. You can visit our website for more information on how you can create that kit. For today's webinar, Portland General Electric has teamed up with Multifamily Northwest, regional water providers, and Energy Trust of Oregon to offer multifamily property managers and owners 7 free seminars and webinars in the month of March on proven strategies for saving energy and water, as well as find out what cash incentives are available and resources. Today's session is the first of the series. We encourage you to attend one or all of them to learn also how to reduce operation costs, improve tenant comfort, boost retention, and hopefully improve your property sustainability. All the seminars and webinars are free and qualify for the Oregon Real Estate Continuing Education credit hours. Before I introduce the instructor, I would like to show you some of the tools that we'll be using during the webinar. To the right side of your screen, you'll notice where everybody's logging in, and you'll see their phones. There's a raise your hand icon if at any point you have any questions, or at the end of the session where we've dedicated some time for questions, you can raise that if you want to ask your question over the phone. Underneath that, you'll also notice is the chat window. Feel free to chat any questions or issues that come up through there, and I will handle those while the instructor is presenting. And then at the end of the session, there'll also be a polling that will come up that for you to provide feedback on our webinar and also what other topics you're interested in learning more about. On the left corner of your screen, left side corner of your screen, you'll also notice there's some annotating tools that we'll be using throughout the session, and Mark will let you know. We want this to be informal and interactive, so please do participate, and if you have any issues with your tools, let me know. We'll go ahead and introduce Mr. Whitney here. So Mark Whitney works for Portland General Electric. He's our lighting specialist, and for the past 10 years, he has been active with the local Oregon section of the Illumination Engineering Society of North America, which is the IESNA, which is widely recognized as a lighting authority. Mark has a long history of providing lighting education to professionals and has instructed all levels of lighting courses offered through IESNA as well as our PGE classes for customers and employees. He's also very familiar with sustainability issues as he's a LEED accredited professional. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Lorena. Welcome everyone to today's lighting webinar focusing on multifamily properties. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules today to learn how lighting upgrades can help your bottom line, improve the look and feel of your properties, and even result in happier tenants. In this webinar, we're going to be using examples for PG customers. However, this lighting webinar will benefit all listeners today. So here's today's agenda. I'll go over some basic lighting terms and give you an overview of commonly used lighting technologies. Then we'll see how to use these technologies in multifamily applications. If you decide that the time is right for you to make improvements, we'll show you how to get started. We'll also talk about cash incentives currently available to PG customers through Energy Trust of Oregon. Throughout the presentation, I will be focusing on saving energy and money while at the same time improving lighting quality by implementing a lighting upgrade project. So we invite your active participation today by using the annotation tools that Lorena mentioned earlier on the very next slide. So we plan to leave time at the end to answer your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. Sorry, we're having a few technical difficulties. There we go. So these are the current key learning objectives for today. So if you could, please use one of your annotation tools, maybe the arrow or the pointer or drawing tool, and indicate to me which one of these is of most interest to you today. Number one, I'd like to be sure that my audience comes away with a better understanding of basic light and lighting concepts. And by going over the advantages and disadvantages of different lighting technologies, you will be better equipped to pick the right ones. Multifamily properties have many common applications as well as some that are somewhat unique. This webinar will help you decide which ones are the best to tackle. At the end, I'll go over how you can get help with your lighting project. Looks like most of you are interested in technologies and applications. Thank you for your feedback. For today's webinar, for the most part, we're going to focus on lighting upgrade measures that are located in the common areas of larger rental properties and not the actual living units. Electricity bills for the common areas as well as the exterior are typically the responsibility of the owner or the property management company. This is also where you're going to find cash incentives for lighting. The Energy Trust Multifamily Program covers rental properties including condominiums. And multifamily means attached rental units that are duplexes and higher for the purposes of this presentation. However, it also covers assisted living and campus living properties, but we're not going to specifically dwell on some of the uniqueness of these last two today. So let's start right off and talk about why most of you are listening today. So here's your typical property owner. All he or she thinks about is money, money, money. Well, that's not totally true, but I'm sure most of you aren't running a charity. Owning or managing multifamily property is an investment. If you're going to implement a lighting upgrade, it needs to make economic sense. The good news is that it's not uncommon to save 50% or more with lighting projects. That is a lot. And these savings translates to more net operating income, which then in turn can translate to a higher market value for your property. So to give you a little illustration of this, let's say you have a project that saves you $3,000 a year. Before, your utilities were costing you $9,500. After you made the improvement, it's only $6,500. Everything else stays the same, but it changes your net operating income. And when you apply the cap rate, it multiplies that benefit into a much higher market value for your property. PG offers or has offered seminars that talk about this in much more detail. One of the benefits of a lighting upgrade is getting rid of maintenance headaches. Efficient fixtures give off less heat, which is going to save on your air conditioning. And I think one of the most important benefits is that it can have a positive impact on your tenants. We all want happy tenants. The economics improve when you take advantage of available cash incentives from Energy Trust of Oregon or some other incentive program from your local utility. The Energy Trust Multifamily Program has a lot to offer multifamily properties for lighting upgrades and other measures, including CFLs and other upgrades for tenant spaces. Common area lighting is eligible for cash incentives, and I'll cover these in more detail later on. You can also download the detailed list from the Energy Trust website. Here's a sampling of non-lighting measures available for multifamily properties. This includes furnaces, heat pumps, water heaters, appliances, insulation, replacement windows, even solar measures. I draw this to your attention because many of these measures are going to be covered in upcoming PG webinars and seminars later on this month. Again, more details on the Energy Trust website. Besides the many economic benefits of lighting upgrades, we also want to pay attention to the many things that light can provide for us. So number one is that you want enough light to see what you're doing and where you're going. So this is one of the primary functions of light. But there's more to it than that. Lighting has a significant impact on how tenants and staff feel about their surroundings. You definitely want a positive feeling about security and safety. Good lighting can also impact moods and even health. Another important thing to remember is that efficient lighting should improve light quality. You not only save money, but you get better lighting. So this isn't a guarantee, but it's very easy to do, especially if you work with an experienced and qualified lighting trade ally. So what exactly is visible light? One way to look at it is visible light is the part of the electromagnetic spectrum that our eyes are capable of seeing. White light is possible by having a combination of various wavelengths of light, especially red, green, and blue. Sunlight, as you might guess, is the best light source because all the colors of the rainbow, all the visible wavelengths are present in relatively equal amounts. But even though sunlight is the best source, it too can have drawbacks. It can be too bright, it can cause glare, there's ultraviolet rays that can cause sunburn, infrared heat. So it's important to know that electric light sources can be very good or even excellent at producing white light. But it's important to know that some are better than others. And we'll try and go over that in the next couple slides. So there's two important color metrics. And the first one that we want to look at is the color rendering index, which indicates the effect of a light source on the color appearance of objects, or you might say how accurately that light source makes things look as far as colors. And the scale is from 0 to 100, with 100 being the best. The sun, as you might guess, is considered to be a perfect 100 because all the colored wavelengths of light are present. Incandescent halogen score the highest for electric light sources, usually around 97, 98, close to 100. And this is why retail stores like to use halogen track lights. It's for their color quality. High pressure sodium street lights, on the other hand, are an example of a very poor CRI, very close to 20. It's a very yellow light sources, and at low light levels, things look just gray and white and black. Multifamily properties should consider the easy and inexpensive benefit of high color rendering index light sources in order to improve the appearance of their common area spaces. The other significant color metric is color temperature. This is measured on a scale called Kelvin, or K. As you may have already noticed on this graph, the larger the number, the cooler the light sources. All sources have a range of color temperature. It's usually not just one number for a light source. So down here with incandescent and halogen, which is another type of incandescent, it's a very tight range, between around 2,700 to a little over 3,000. Where if you look up here to the fluorescent, CFLs are a type of fluorescent, that the range is quite large. In fact, you could expand on that range and you can get color temperatures of 8,000 or even higher with fluorescent. Now, color temperature is very subjective. However, most people's skin, people look better under warmer sources, and that's because there's more red in that light source. On the other hand, we see most tasks better under the cooler sources. And the reason for that is that there's more blue in the spectrum, which makes our pupils smaller, which allows us to see more clearly. Now, this is a very complex topic, and one that other lighting webinars and seminars cover in more detail. But a lot of research is going on right now that focuses on the human response to color temperature, and color temperature changes throughout the day. So stay tuned for that. In fact, we'll have a seminar coming up in September that talks about what we call human-centric lighting. Now I want to go over a few important lighting terms that will help with the rest of the webinar. Number one is input power, which is known as watts. So when that power, electricity, is applied to a light source, it produces lumens. Efficacy is a term you may not have heard before, but it's the term that indicates the number of lumens per watt and lets you know how efficient your lamp source is. It's kind of like miles per gallon. So getting more lumens per watt improves a light source's efficacy and thus the efficiency of a lighting system. Light levels can be measured in foot candles with a light meter. And here are a few reference points just to help you understand the amount of foot candles you need for various interior tasks. So just getting around and some simple visual tasks, maybe those with big letters or things like that, 3 to 10 foot candles. This might be the range for like some hallways. Common visual tasks is going to be in the 30 to 100 foot candle range. Special visual tasks, which might mean inspecting small parts or maybe brain surgery, something like that. So here's a somewhat busy chart, but what I want to point out is efficacy of different light sources. So down at the bottom, we have lumens per watt from 0 to about 150 on this particular graph. Up at the upper left, with the incandescent sources, and there's different types, from the basic light bulb on up to your infrared halogens, efficacy is quite low. You can see when you get into compact fluorescent that efficacy gets better. T12s are better, but you can see that any T8 or T5 is going to be better than any T12. High pressure sodium, we talked about that, has a low color rendering index, but it has high lumens per watt, which is one of the reasons that we use them for street lights. You'll notice that two of these light sources, both metal halide and light-emitting diodes, or LEDs, show a significant room for improvement, with LEDs having the most room for improvement. Most of the other light sources listed on this chart may improve a little bit, but not very much. So this is one of the reasons that LEDs has so much excitement right now. So how can we determine if your property could use a lighting upgrade? Well, here's a list of questions that'll help get you started. We talked a little bit about light levels, foot candles. One of the things I like to point out is don't automatically assume that the current light levels that you have are correct. Don't use that as the baseline. Measure your light levels using a light meter. Look up charts that tell you what light levels should be. And also take into consideration that all light sources lose light over time. That's called light depreciation. So you may be looking at lights that have lost their initial light output. What is the condition of your light fixtures? Are they old? Do they need repairs? Are you seeing a lot of increased failures? Are you getting complaints from your staff or tenants? What kind of complaints? Do you find that when you're walking around your property that some lights are left on when they aren't needed? Maybe an automatic control would help there. And what we're going to talk about next is, do you have some old technologies? Do you have outdated T12 lamps? Do you have first generation T8 lamps in ballast? Maybe your space is overlit. Do you have incandescent sources? And multifamily properties are somewhat famous for having lousy outdoor light fixtures. Not everybody, hopefully nobody out there listening. So the focus today is going to be on technologies that apply to multifamily applications. So here we want to get your annotation tools out again. So if you could, just take a minute and mark on here which one of these technologies is of most interest to you today. Just point or mark in front of one of these 4 categories. If you have older technologies, again, it makes sense to consider changes. And while LED is considered the latest, greatest thing, most applications work best with tried and true fluorescent lamps. However, we are seeing more and more applications that can benefit from LED. And I can see a lot of you are interested in this. Thanks for your feedback. Very colorful. Before we discuss linear fluorescence, I want to go over some lighting terms that help us describe lamps. And part of this involves a little bit of math. First of all, a lamp is going to have a letter which designates the relative shape of that lamp. So down here, a G would be a globe-shaped lamp. MR stands for a multifaceted reflector. And over here we have a parabolic aluminized reflector, which may not mean a lot to a lot of you out here. The number is going to designate the maximum diameter of that lamp in 1/8 of an inch. And here's where math comes in. So we'll start out with some easy math here. Down at the bottom, you see we have an example for a T8 where the T stands for tubular. That's the shape of the lamp. 8 stands for 8/8 or 1 inch. So a T8 is a tubular lamp that's 1 inch in diameter. A T12 then would be 1.5 inches. The MR16, 2 inches, and so on. So hopefully you kind of get the idea. So we'll start out talking about T12s. T12 lamps with magnetic ballast, which were made for T12 lamps. Most of the original T12 was a 40-watt lamp, but that was outdated by legislation, or outlawed, I should say, many years ago. So most of the ones that you see are 34-watt energy savers. So these have, they do save energy, but they have poor light quality. The CRI is very low, down around 60 or so. And these lamps don't work well in cold temperatures. So sometimes you might see these, if you have them outside in the winter, that if they're working, they're kind of have this raccoon tail strobing effect on them. They're operated by inefficient magnetic ballast, and those ballasts they stopped making those. So if you need a replacement, you have to get an electronic T12 ballast. But I recommend you don't do that. If you need to get a new ballast, get an electronic one that's made for a T8. Get a T8 lamp with the proper electronic ballast. As of July of last year, most T12 lamps have been mandated to stop being made. But you can find, there's some exceptions. You can get some replacement options, but these are going to cost you more. Now, because T12s are so bad, changing them out to something more efficient is an easy decision, but the option to go to and which one you pick is not as easy, but I'll try to sort that out for you in the next few slides. And I'll try not to get too technical. This is not something to memorize, but I do want to cover some important lighting upgrade alternatives. The good news is that you can get a qualified lighting trade ally that knows all this stuff, and they can provide you with the best upgrade solutions. But it's good to know this stuff so you can talk to that person better. So any T8 lamp with electronic ballast is better in every way when compared with a T12 system. Better color rendering, the efficacy, lamp life, all those things are better. Also know that T8s fit in the same lamp holders as T12, so this makes them good for retrofits. But the best performing T8s are known as high performance. And as well, the best performing ballast, electronic ballasts, are known as high performance. Now, when you combine the lamps with the ballast, that gives you a high performance system. And savings of 40 to 50% is very common. It's important to know that this high performance equipment is required in order to get an incentive from Energy Trust. And if you want to find out if the lamps or ballast you're considering qualify, you can go to this website and find a list that will show you these lamps and ballasts by manufacturer and model number. They just redid the website. It's a little harder to get to that, but if you go to that website, hopefully you can find your way to that list. Now, high performance rated T8s can also be found in a reduced wattage model. So rather than being a 32 watt lamp, you're going to have a 28 or 25 watt lamp. So this can be a good strategy under the right circumstances. So if you already have T8s and you're overlit, then you can just change these out and save about 10%. However, you can't use this strategy if you have existing T12 fixtures. That's because the T8 lamps aren't going to work on that old T12 ballast. As I mentioned, the reduced wattage, the most common ones are 28 and 25 watts compared to the standard 32 watt T8. One caveat that they must be used in conditioned spaces of 60 degrees or higher. You can go a little lower than that, and if you have an enclosed fixture, you can maybe even use them outside. Now these are especially good, again, if you're currently overlit. Keep in mind that the energy usage and light output is going to be reduced by about the same amount. So next, let's look at situations where you could consider reduced wattage T8s by retrofitting. So for T12 systems, or if you have an older T8 system, retrofitting would be a much better idea than the simple relamping we just talked about. This is going to involve a new ballast and perhaps some other modifications. But with this option, unlike the simple relamping, this will qualify for some generous Energy Trust cash incentives. So the applications for retrofitting, again, if you have an existing T12 system, and if you have an older T8 installation, maybe you upgraded to first generation T8s 10, 15 years ago. These ballasts are nearing the end of their life and they need to be replaced anyway. And as much as I think reduced wattage T8s are a good retrofit choice, I always recommend that your first choice be the full wattage 32 watt high performance lamps because with retrofit upgrades you can often reduce the total number of lamps with your retrofitted fixture. You can do it also with reduced wattage, but you can reduce to a smaller number of lamps with the high performance full wattage T8s. Okay. Hopefully some of that is starting to make sense. I know it's confusing. So what about T5s? These are thinner and T8s were better than T12, so T5s must be better than T8s. Well, not always the case. One thing to keep in mind is that they're not going to fit. It's not a good retrofit lamp because they don't fit in the T12 or T8 lamp holders, and that's because they have these miniature bi-pins and they're about 2 inches shorter than your basic 4-foot T8 lamp. So again, not meant to be a retrofit lamp, but works very well in new fixtures. Okay, so let's kind of summarize what we've talked about. If you haven't got this point already, you should retrofit or replace any T12 fixtures now, especially while there's still incentives for that. Don't just choose any T8, make sure you get a high performance T8. And when you're looking for retrofit strategy, look first at the full wattage 32 watt before you look at the reduced wattage. Although I think that's an excellent strategy, but all things being equal, look at strategies where you might be able to reduce lamps. Look at a retrofit option before you just go out and buy a new fixture. And that's because the hourly labor rates are usually lower for retrofits if you have this hired by if you hire a contractor. And there are a lot of retrofit kits that can make an old fixture look just like new. So decide if lower light levels would be appropriate. Very often that is the case. Many T12 systems were installed when light level recommendations were much higher. Plus, you had to allow for the lumen depreciation of T12s, which is very steep. So don't automatically retrofit lamp for lamp. Look for opportunities to delamp. And if you can go for lower ambient light levels, maybe you can supplement with task lights, and that's a cheaper option. So there's LED options for replacing linear fluorescent, but most of these are still not cost effective, but that's beginning to change, so stay tuned. And I also want to issue a caveat to stay away from LED T8s. These are an LED tube that looks like a T8 lamp, fits in the lamp holders, but is usually not a good choice. And I go over that in more detail in an LED webinar. So we've talked about linear fluorescent. Let's talk about compact fluorescent. This is very similar to linear fluorescent. It has the same technology. You've got some phosphor-coated tubes. They just happen to be smaller and they're twisted around. You still have a ballast. But the basic principle is the same as linear fluorescent. And the latest versions are much improved. A lot of people had poor experiences with CFLs years ago, but they're much better now. They're smaller, they last longer, they're less expensive, a lot less expensive than they used to be. So they can still be a good efficiency choice. And I'll go over the advantages and disadvantages in a minute or two. But this information will help you decide whether or not to use them and whether you should recommend them for your tenants or not. You may be aware that some incandescent bulbs are no longer being made, and they're making an incandescent halogen energy saver bulb available, but most of the time a CFL is going to be the better choice. And often a better choice than a CFL is going to be an LED. These are starting to become a better option for some applications, especially ones with long hours of operation. So some of the advantages, again, a lot of shapes and sizes, and you can get screw-in or self-ballasted versions that just simply fit in where an old light bulb used to go. Some of you may have fixtures that have a replaceable lamp. It's going to have a ballast that it needs somewhere in the fixture. You usually can't see it, but the ballast lasts about 5 times longer than the lamp, so you can replace this replaceable lamp 5 or 6 times before the ballast burns out or wears out. CFLs, on average, about 10,000 hours, use about 75% less energy, good color rendering. Again, price and quality is improved, and if you want a good place to start, look for Energy Star rated compact fluorescents. As many of you have experienced, there's some disadvantages with CFLs. They're not as user-friendly. Most of them can't be dimmed or used with sensors and timers. They can also have a very short lamp life if they get overheated. This happens if you put them in recessed cans or in closed fixtures. Also, as you can see from this list, they contain a small amount of mercury, so they need to be disposed of properly. But look at this list here. Back about 25 years ago, the first T12s had about 45 milligrams of mercury. That was a lot. The typical T8 has 4 to 5, where some have less than 3, some as low as 1.7. Your CFLs have a very small amount, some less than 2. So the amount of mercury that represents is about the size of the tip of a ballpoint pen, just to kind of put it in perspective. So if this is a concern and you want to learn more about mercury and lamp recycling, go to lamprecycle.org, and you can find information about where you can recycle your lamps and your CFLs. And also, the next time you go to Home Depot or IKEA, you can take some CFLs with you that have burned out, and they'll take them at no charge. And there's other places you can go to as well. Now, if you have, and I've seen this, people are taking out their lamps, they're storing them in the shed out back someplace, maybe their ballast. You really need to dispose of those properly. So make sure you take care of that. That will help you also reduce future liabilities that you might have having those lamps and ballast on your property. Torch shares is a topic I always like to discuss with multifamily applications, whether they're used in the common areas or you allow them to be used in your tenant spaces. So these torch shares usually use a 300-watt halogen lamp. So besides being an energy hog, these fixtures get very hot, up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. And because they're so tall, they're prone to tipping over and have been known to start fires. So if you must use one, make sure you get a safety guard to cover the lamp. And this is going to help prevent flammable materials from getting close to the hot lamp. So even better is getting a CFL torchère, either the special flat type CFL or you can get a 3-way CFL. Gives you 3 light levels. The LED versions of this, just not enough light level in there. If you can get one, they're too expensive. So the applications where you want to use CFLs or not use CFLs, I'm sorry, is again, don't use them with timers, photo sensors, and occupancy sensors unless it says so that it's okay on the box. Same thing with dimming. And also don't put them in applications where they're going to be turned on and off a lot. This is going to reduce the lamp life significantly. So don't use them if your application has short hours of operation, like a closet or supply cabinet, incandescent, it'll work just fine. Also, if you have very long hours of operation, an LED would be a better choice. And avoid hot environments. This chart indicates that you're going to get your maximum lifetime with a CFL if the base is down. It's going to be shortened if you have it with the base up. And the lifetime goes down a lot if you put an enclosed fixture like a recessed can or some other type of enclosed fixture. Where to use them? Any place that LEDs and incandescents don't make sense, where you have long but not very long hours of operation. And Energy Trust has cash incentives for screw-in CFLs and also new CFL fixtures. Okay, so let's turn our attention now to the new kid on the block, LEDs. So LEDs are becoming a viable option for many applications, but there's a wide range of quality and performance, so you need to be informed. You got to do your homework in order to make good choices. So this is one place that you can go look at some good ones. Next Generation Luminaires focuses on commercial LEDs, where Lighting for Tomorrow is more residential. So you can check out either one of these websites for more information and see some more recent winners. So why use LEDs? Well, probably the number one reason is because they produce light efficiently. This is a chart that shows the introduction of other light sources and how they've improved over time. Where over here, just about 10 years ago, white LEDs first came on, and they've just started improving just dramatically. You can see that in a few short years, the efficacy is going to far exceed any other light source. LEDs have a long life, even 100,000 hours or more. One of their strengths is that it's a directional light source, so this works really good for some applications, but for others, like replicating a light bulb, that can be a little bit more challenging. They're small. The LEDs themselves are small, but because when you have to get more light output for larger fixtures, you need a bigger heat sink, so they can actually end up being quite big. LEDs are inherently dimmable, but compatibility with existing dimmers can be an issue. Unlike fluorescent, there's no mercury, also no UV or infrared heat, but they do produce heat, so you do have to keep that in mind. It's just not radiated infrared heat. Until just recently, there just hasn't been an acceptable alternative for halogen reflector lamps for track lighting and down lighting. CFLs were tried, but they have a poor beam pattern, and they just don't have a good enough color quality for demanding applications like retail. So your screw-in LED replacement directional lamps, they've improved to the point where they're an excellent alternative to halogen. There's great energy savings, long lamp life, the color quality is excellent, and these are the things that make LED lamps a compelling lamp replacement choice. Now you can also use these types of lamps in some recessed cans, but they make a special LED retrofit downlight kit for recessed can. That usually works much better. Keep in mind that these directional lamps qualify for generous cash incentives through Energy Trust, $15 to $25, but must use an approved product and meet other program criteria. So again, you can save money with LEDs, not just the LEDs themselves, but through the incentives. And here's that approved list that I just mentioned. Go to this website and you can find out if your LED is an approved product or not. There's prescriptive incentives for LED downlights. Here's one of those that I talked about. You can get $30 for each one of these. This is great. I've actually put these in my kitchen, but they're great for commercial applications as well. LED directional lamps, once again, a nice incentive for these. And you can even get a custom incentive if you have an application that's not on the standard prescriptive list. So must be approved product, however. And don't forget LED exit signs. Nice incentive for those. So places where not to use them, just like with CFLs, if you have very short hours of operation, an incandescent is probably going to be better. If it's a really hot environment, some LEDs don't do so well. And in multifamily applications, you might want to consider areas where they might get stolen. Maybe don't do it there. So the places to use LEDs, probably number one, where you have very long hours of operation. That justifies the first cost, the higher first cost. They like it cold. They work really well there. They don't mind being switched on and off a lot. This is great. You can use them with most timers, photo sensors, and occupancy sensors, but again, look at the box to make sure that that is appropriate. Dimming works really well, but not always with existing dimmers. And as we just saw, they work great for track lights and recessed cans. Let's talk a little bit about controls. Some people maybe didn't have a great experience with occupancy sensors in the past, but they're getting better, smarter, more reliable. And more often, they're actually being added directly to light fixtures themselves. Photosensors are great for outdoor fixtures. Nothing bothers me more than seeing an outdoor light fixture on during the daytime. That's what a waste. The cause is usually a failed photosensor or maybe a timer that's not working properly. And speaking of timers, instead of using the standard timer that most people use, consider an astronomical time clock. This, once you set it up, it automatically adjusts for the length of day and night. It usually comes in a panel box like this, but you can also get them for smaller loads with a wall switch version. Okay, now we're going to, in the home stretch, we're going to look at some applications, put this all together. So this is another good time to use your annotation tools. If you're still with us, point or mark one of these applications as of most interest to you. So I realize most of you only have a few of these applications, but I find that these are the ones that have energy efficiency upgrade options. So I'll go over these one at a time, and keep in mind that many of these are going to have more than one good efficiency solution. I see a lot of you looking at exterior parking and area lighting, stairwells, hallways. We're going to look at exterior parking first. So the number one lighting issue for multifamily, I feel, is that tenants and staff feel safe and secure after dark. So fixtures that produce an even white light are going to be the best. And you also want to avoid outdoor light fixtures that cast deep shadows. It gives a place for the bad guys to hide. Light pollution is wasted light that shines upward into the night sky, so you want to avoid that. Light trespass is excess light that reaches adjacent properties or maybe shines into someone's bedroom window at night. Don't want that. You want to pay attention to color. As you can see down here, that high pressure sodium has a very yellow light, where LED or metal halide, has a much whiter light, much more pleasing and much better. Outdoor fixtures can become a maintenance headache if you don't maintain them. Also, if you buy cheap fixtures. As we mentioned before, don't have your outdoor fixtures on during the day. So make sure you have them on controls and controls that work. So there are numerous efficient outdoor lighting fixture options. One is adding an appropriate outdoor CFL fixture, and this qualifies for prescriptive cash incentives. You can get a custom incentive for LED and some other technologies. Outdoor lighting fixtures are just now becoming cost effective, so most of these for LED have to be a custom incentive. Keep in mind, every application is unique, so using an experienced lighting trade ally is your best bet to get help with your outdoor lighting needs. There are a lot of ways to illuminate exterior stairwells. Often these are inexpensive drum fixtures or globe fixtures, so a lot of times you can just put a screw-in CFL lamp in these. But make sure that you get a CFL that's enclosed for these enclosed fixtures. Oftentimes you're better off getting an entire new fixture, either compact fluorescent, linear fluorescent, or maybe even LED if they have to be on a long time. One thing that some of you may not be thinking about, but if you have exterior fixtures that don't have some kind of covering, that having them dark sky compliant, which means it doesn't waste any light going up into the night sky. Some of you listening today may have interior stairwells. These need to have fixtures on all the time, even though they're not used very much. So if code allows, you should consider bi-level fixtures that are on a low standby setting, maybe 5 to 20%, and then they go to full brightness when someone enters the stairwell. So this works well with LED fixtures that have fixture-mounted occupancy sensors like the one that you see here from Lamar Lighting. So this can be somewhat expensive, but if you have to get new fixtures anyway, think about getting this type of fixture. So another company that makes this type of stairwell fixture is Lutron, and they use a wireless control strategy along with an LED fixture. So in this situation, let's say you entered on floor number 2, the light fixtures on the first and third floor also come on. And your high settings can be anywhere from around 75% to full brightness, depending on the light level needs and your local code requirements. Again, always make sure you check those out. Interior hallways, they also usually need to be on all the time, so there's a lot of potential for energy savings here. This is also a place where you want to make sure that is adequately illuminated. If you have T12s, you definitely want to go with an upgrade that uses the high performance T8s. either retrofit or new fixtures. Another option is to put a new CFL or a new LED fixture. And this is another place where the bi-level occupancy sensors would be a good option. And again, make sure you comply with all applicable codes. All right. Laundry rooms. These often have basic fluorescent wrap fixtures, but other spaces might have this type of fixture, and these are a good candidate for a retrofit upgrade. In laundry rooms and other places where there's high humidity, sometimes these fixtures get rusted. Sometimes the fixtures have a cracked or missing lens. In that case, you just want to replace the fixture. And if you do have high humidity, you may even want a vapor-tight fixture for that humid or wet environment. Laundry rooms are often infrequently used, and lights get left on, so this is a good place for an occupancy sensor. Restrooms in your common areas, they often have a vanity fixture over the sink, might look like this, with some bulbs that have burned out. So if they have this type of lamp, you might want to consider a CFL or an LED globe that will make it look a whole lot better and last a lot longer. So another option that you can have would be to install an entire new vanity fixture, and this could have a linear fluorescent T8 lamp or maybe even LED if there's a lot of hours of operation. And you can think about an occupancy sensor if there's enough load, enough wattage there to justify a sensor. Fitness rooms are just one example where you might find recessed troughers. Often they have a plastic prismatic lens, or they might have a parabolic louver like this one in the picture, which this would be really bad for a fitness room where you might be on your back doing exercising, looking directly at exposed bare lamps. These recessed troughers, there's numerous options for retrofitting these using high-performance T8s. And look for opportunities where you can retrofit with fewer lamps, and also consider kits that can improve the look and performance of the fixture. So with this parabolic, you can get a new high-performance lens that gets rid of the bare lamps and makes the fixture look better. And I go over these strategies in much more detail in other webinars and seminars. Again, this might be a good place for an occupancy sensor. Lobbies can have a variety of lighting, and they may even have a residential look like this one. And this is an area where you want to make a good first impression with prospective tenants, so don't skimp on light quality. And you may even want to spend a little extra for new fixtures just to give it that really good look. So if any of you out there are thinking, I'd like to make some improvements, where do I start? Well, one place is that you can give us at PG a call. We will come out there and give you a free energy efficiency consultation, either on the phone or actually coming out. And here's some contact information if you want to give us a call or check out our website. So keep in mind that if you'd like to get a free lighting upgrade estimate from an approved Energy Trust lighting trade ally, we can get that set up for you, as well as get you connected to the Multifamily Energy Trust program. Okay, we're wrapping up. I know I need to take a deep breath. I'm sure some of you have got a lot of good information today, maybe too much. But here is a summary. If you have existing T12 or an older T8 system, then by all means look at these high-performance T8 systems. If you have incandescent lamps, CFLs or LEDs, good choice. And if lights are left on, consider some kind of control, occupancy sensor, and also controls for your outdoor lighting. So the end result of having a good lighting upgrade is that you're going to have big energy savings, you're going to save even more if you take advantage of cash incentives, which will improve your net operating income which in turn will increase your property market value. And you're going to have happy tenants and happy owners. So thanks for sticking with us. And now I want to turn over the remainder of the presentation to Lorena for some additional information and to take your questions. Lorena?
Great, thank you, Mark. Before we go into the
Okay.
Hello?
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 Hello, this is Mark.
Mark, this is Scott. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Scott.
Hey, so I had a couple of questions for you. One, our outdoor lighting in our parking lot areas is metal halide. And when I was looking at how much it would cost to convert those, because they do provide good light, but they're pretty expensive to replace. Is LEDs a better option at that point for putting out the same amount of light then?
Well, currently, if you know, I recommend if your existing metal halide is actually in pretty good shape, then I often recommend just hang in there for another year or two.
Okay.
But if it's starting to fail, you got to replace it with something. Now, look at some LED options. It's not going to be a 2-year payback, but it can be a cost-effective one. But it's one that you're going to have a little sharper pencil. It's not a slam dunk retrofit. Replacing metal halide with LED, but it can be. But you're going to have to find a fixture that's priced right and can be installed easily. So if those conditions exist, you may be able to get an incentive then for LED replacing your metal halide.
Okay, and then we also have in our stairwells, on our stairwell entryways, we have what we call the halo bulbs. I think they're T9 bulbs. Is there a CFL conversion of those as well?
Is that like a circ line type of?
Yeah, the circular ones.
Yeah, not a good replacement for that. I would get a new fixture if you have those.
Okay. And then the torsiers, you brought up a good point there. I have 3 of those in my apartment. Do they currently make conversion where you can just convert the bulb from halogen to the more energy-saving one, or do you just have to buy a whole new fixture?
I think they do. They do make some retrofit kits. I'm sure you could go online and probably find them. But the new ones aren't all that expensive. So it makes it a tough choice. I actually have a halogen one still at home. It was a nice one. I just can't give it up. I don't use it all that much, but I do have a safety guard on it. But one of these days, I'm going to replace it with a CFL. I do have one that has a 3-way CFL, and that works really well. But
okay. Well, thanks a lot for this. It was great.
Okay. Well, thanks for those questions, Scott.
Thank you.
And we actually did not have any other questions, Mark, so thank you everyone for joining us. And again, we're going to be sending the materials and the recording of the session within a couple days. And again, thanks for joining us.